This is BBC World News Today. I'm Karen Giannoni. Our top stories. One of basketball's all-time greats, Kobe Bryant, has been killed in a helicopter crash in Southern California. Reports say his helicopter went down into a hillside in Calabasas in fog. He was 41.
If our culture could somehow have bottled all of the things that Kobe possessed in his character, we would probably be selling condos on the moon these days. He had that sort of ability to just transform everything.
In other news, Chinese officials warn that the coronavirus's ability to spread is getting more effective and say new measures will be taken to control the disease. After more clashes in Iraq, the Shia cleric Muqtada al-Sadr tells his supporters to clear the streets to avoid further strife. Hello, welcome to World News Today. The former basketball star Kobe Bryant has died in a helicopter crash in Southern California. Reports say his helicopter went down into a hillside in Calabasas in fog. He was 41. Kobe Bryant is one of basketball's all-time greats. He spent his career with the Los Angeles Lakers. This is a live shot from Calabasas in California. You can still see the aftermath of the crash involving 5 people, we believe. Smoke still rising from the scene. Let's get the very latest from our correspondent David Willis, who's in Los Angeles. David, shocking news. Just what do we know at this stage?
Well, Karen, I can tell you that in the last few minutes, LA Lakers, the team that Kobe Bryant spent his entire career playing for, have just confirmed this news that's been reported by multiple news outlets here, that Kobe Bryant was one of 5 people on board that Sikorsky helicopter that crashed in Calabasas. That's about 20 miles from downtown Los Angeles, in a remote area. Apparently, there were some people mountain biking there who actually spotted this crash and reported it to officials. But confirmed here by the team that he was such a star playing for, the LA Lakers, that Kobe Bryant has indeed died at the age of 41.
And at this stage, David, no details about why this helicopter may have gone down.
Absolutely. A lot of speculation, Karen, already that poor visibility may have played a part in this crash. It has been very foggy here in the last few days. There were reports as well on local media that this Sikorsky helicopter was seen losing altitude before it crashed in this fairly remote hillside area in Calabasas. But needless to say, officials here will be carrying out an investigation, federal officials as well, into the precise cause of this disaster.
Now, he played his entire 20-year career with the Los Angeles Lakers, a huge global star. What reaction have we heard at this stage, just in the last hour since this news emerged?
Well, a lot of sadness expressed already on the part of the sporting community. I mean, Kobe Bryant was, let's face it, one of the greatest NBA players of all time. You just have to look at the statistics during that 20-year career. 18 NBA All-Star titles, won the NBA 5 times. And he was also somebody who took his career beyond basketball. He won an Oscar for a film about basketball, short film about basketball, back in 2018, and was seen as a leading advocate for the game of basketball, despite having retired a few years ago. You mentioned reaction. We've already got some from President Trump as well, who tweeted a short while ago reports that Kobe Bryant and others have been killed in a helicopter crash in California. Terrible news, and summed up, I think, the sadness here quite well by the LA Mayor, Eric Garcetti, who tweeted a short while ago, Karen, "This is a moment that leaves us struggling to find words that express the magnitude of shock and sorrow we're feeling right now. I'm keeping Kobe Bryant's entire family in my prayers at this time of unimaginable grief," Karen.
David, you mentioned entire family. He leaves behind 4 daughters, one of them born only last year.
One of them born only last year, in June of last year, and another, actually, who was a promising, or is a promising, basketball star of her own. Now, there have been reports, unconfirmed reports, that another family, maybe other family members, may have been on board that private helicopter. We simply don't have confirmation of those reports, though, at this time.
OK, David, thank you very much. Stay with us, if you will. David Willis in Los Angeles as we look at those pictures from Calabasas of the crash site, where LA County Sheriff have confirmed that 5 people were on board that helicopter. All of them have tragically perished. Kobe Bryant himself on board. Let's bring in our sports correspondent Joe Wilson. And Joe, you actually met Kobe Bryant at the Olympics.
Yes, now this is one interesting aspect of his career, because I think you tend to perceive these big stars of the NBA as huge individuals, sometimes literally huge. I mean, these tall, strong men who commanded a great presence, great wages and great fame. But in 2008, when the Olympics were in Beijing, I was based in Macau, and that's where the United States team were practicing. And I think from memory, they called that team the Redeem Team, because they were desperate for basketball to achieve something on a national level, for all these stars to come into the US team, who would be competing, obviously, day in, day out, with big egos, let's face it. And it needed somebody to bring these guys together. And by general consent, I think it was Kobe Bryant who did that. So they won gold in 2008 and again in 2012. But I've really grown up being a sports journalist in the UK, where our approach to our stars is quite different than what it is in the States, certainly in basketball. And the idea was there that you just walked onto the court, and if the player wanted to talk to you, he would talk to you. And you waited. I remember waiting there, Kobe Bryant was strapping up his knee. When could I say, can we have an interview? Can we not have an interview? So it was quite a nerve-wracking thing. And he spoke, and basketball players generally did. And this is one aspect, I think, when we talk about these really big names of US basketball. During the 20 years of Kobe Bryant's fame, I think it's branched out beyond the US. More foreign players have come into the NBA, but also the NBA spread out. Played matches in London. There's a match this year scheduled. It was moved to Paris. So we're talking about a time when these players became real global stars. And I think the NBA has always sought to carve out its market share with the rivalry with baseball and NFL, obviously, by making some of its stars really high profile. And the arc of Kobe Bryant's life is really quite extraordinary, not least because in the eyes of many people, I think, in the States, he really had to rebuild his reputation. 2003, 2004, the sexual assault accusation, which was dropped from trial in the end, but there was a civil lawsuit after it. And I think in the eyes of many people, after that, Kobe Bryant's life in the public media was one of redemption.
And he managed to redeem himself in the eyes of the public.
Yes, I mean, everybody in the public has a different perception of redemption, of course. But I think all the tributes that have come in today are a very clear sign of the way that Kobe Bryant did that. And he has such a long career, which isn't totally unusual for basketball players. But I think to have that career in one place with one franchise, that is really remarkable.
How early did his talent show through? I mean, his dad was a very successful basketball player.
Yeah, I mean, I think his first professional contract with the Lakers was back in '96, so he was obviously a very young man, 96, 97. And I think people who knew him even before that would speak of his incredible drive and his incredible focus on basketball. Basketball was absolutely everything to him. And so that makes it interesting that just recently, you know, with the poem that became a film, there are signs that he was actually branching out into using basketball as a platform for other things. And that's what fascinates me, and I suppose it's particularly sad, is that you think, well, what could he do with that fame and his position that basketball gave him for the next 30, 40 years he might have had in his life? Because there's no doubt that basketball players play a particularly unique role, I think, in broader society in the US.
And when you were up close to him, when you watched him play, what was so special about what you saw on that court?
Well, he was 6'6", which seems tall.
1.98 m.
Yes, absolutely. But of course isn't extraordinarily tall. And there was an era in US basketball when the idea was that you had to have guys who were well over 7 foot. Famous quote, of course, is that one thing you can't coach is height. You know, if you've got height, you've got it. You can't make somebody taller. But he was a dynamic player. He was a point scorer player. I think 4th in the all-time NBA list, so that's over 30,000 points. Just stop and think about that for a moment. I mean, the schedule that those guys play, day in, day out, you know, they go on the road and play 4 matches a week or something. I mean, is incredible. So I think he was. I think they would have called him a shooting guard. Would have been his position. So he was a guy who could probably do everything on the court, but a dynamic player, famous as much for his skill as just his sheer height and size.
Joe, thank you very much. Joe Wilson, our sports correspondent. And as Joe speaks, we are watching the scene 20 miles or so outside LA, the town of Calabasas, and the hillside there where you can see smoke rising from the scene of a helicopter crash. 5 people on board, all of whom have been killed in the crash. One of them, we know now, Kobe Bryant, one of the all-time greatest basketball legends. David Willis is following the story from Los Angeles. And David, just give us a sense of the reaction that we've been hearing and also when we might hear any more information about what happened.
Absolutely, Karen, and I should point out that the LA Lakers, a short while ago, since we've been on air, in fact, this hour, having confirmed that Kobe Bryant was one of 5 people who died in that helicopter crash at Calabasas. There are unconfirmed reports that Kobe Bryant's daughters, one of his 4 daughters, at least one of his 4 daughters, Gianni Marie, who is also known as Gigi, was on board that helicopter. But I stress that those are unconfirmed reports at this time. We're getting reports as well that this helicopter was carrying Kobe Bryant and others to a basketball practice at a place called Thousand Oaks, which is not far from Los Angeles. But you mentioned there, Karen, reaction, and we've had reaction, of course, from President Trump saying that this is terrible news. And I think really capturing the local mood here, because he was a son of Los Angeles, Kobe Bryant. The LA Mayor, Eric Garcetti, tweeting a short while ago, "This is a moment that leaves us struggling to find words that express the magnitude of shock and sorrow that we are all feeling right now." Karen.
OK, David, thank you very much. David Willis reporting live from Los Angeles as we look at that scene not far away from Los Angeles, Calabasas, the hillside there, just after 12 minutes past 1 in the afternoon. This crash, we believe, happened at around 10 o'clock local time in the morning. Kobe Bryant on board a helicopter with 5 people in total on board, all of whom have died. The TMZ website was the first, the Showbiz website, tabloid website, was the first to break this news. And in the hour or two since that news came out, it has been confirmed that Kobe Bryant was on board that helicopter. TMZ reporting he was travelling with 4 other people in his private helicopter when it went down. A fire broke out. There was a quick response from emergency personnel. Nobody, however, on board survived. 5 people confirmed dead, according to Los Angeles County Sheriff. And Kobe Bryant famously, it reports, has used a helicopter to travel for years. It dates back to when he played for the Lakers, the LA Lakers, where he spent his 20-year career. He was known for commuting from Newport Beach, California, to the Staples Center in his Sikorsky helicopter. And he is survived by his wife, Vanessa. They have 4 daughters, Jana, Natalia and Bianca. And they have a daughter just a few months old, Capri. And he leaves behind 4 daughters. Let's just get some of the tributes and some of the sense of shock that's come from the sporting world and beyond. They've been paying their tributes to Kobe Bryant. NBA Hall of Famer Dennis Rodman said, "Devastated to hear the news of my friend Kobe Bryant's passing. Prayers go out to his wife, Vanessa, and his children and the Lakers family." The football club AC Milan also has tweeted saying, "We have no words to express how shocked we are to hear of the tragic passing of one of the greatest sportsmen of all time and a Rossonero fan, Kobe Bryant. All our thoughts are with the families of those affected by this tragic accident. You will be forever missed, Kobe." Let's talk to Sam Nita, who is a journalist and creator of the basketball website Hoops Fix. Sam, thank you very much for talking to us. Your thoughts on this tragic news?
I mean, I'm as shocked as everyone else. It is hard to put into words just how tragic it is, you know, for someone that's just 41 years old, you know, recently retired 4 years ago. And I mean, he transcended sports. He is one of the few global sporting superstars that the average person on the street that doesn't care about sports would know who he is. You know, I've seen all the tributes coming in and just how many lives he's touched through his career. He has been the face of the NBA for pretty much the past 2 decades. and it was just 18 hours ago that he was congratulating LeBron James for passing him on the all-time scoring list. I mean, to imagine where we were then to now in such a short period of time and what's happened, it's so tragic. I think that there's so many players in the NBA today and all over the world who wouldn't be playing basketball if it wasn't for Kobe Bryant. He was idolised by many and someone that so many people looked up to because of what he did on the basketball court. You know, you name it, he's done it. Holds so many records, won 5 titles, you know, 2-time Olympian, All-Star MVP, you know, regular season MVP, finals MVP. Like he's done it all, and you know, to lose his life in such a tragic way, it's just so sad, and I mean, so hard to put into words.
And Sam, I mean, what was it about him that turned him into one of the greatest basketball players of all time?
I mean, it's the work ethic, you know, and people, you know, they will attach to that. Someone that just wasn't reliant on just his God-given abilities and talent, but someone that there's just countless stories of, you know, 3 a.m. workouts, you know, staying after a game and shooting for hours and hours.
Greg Downer coached Mr.
Okay.
Bryant from
Sam, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We're just going to take a live news conference from Calabasas. Let's listen in.
1996 state championship. Mr. Downer said that he is completely shocked and devastated today upon hearing the news, adding that Aces Nation has lost its heartbeat. The entire Lower Merion School District community sends its deepest condolences to the entire Bryant family. Our basketball teams will no doubt pay tribute to Mr. Bryant as our season continues. But at this time, as a district, we will concentrate on supporting those in our community, including Coach Downer and English teacher Jean Mastriano, whom Mr. Bryant credited for sparking his love of writing. Thank you for being here.
Amy, are you taking questions?
I don't have a lot of information I can add.
Just based off of how did the district learn about this, and can you give us a sort of a feeling from the upper levels of the administration?
We heard about it on the news. I guess like most people did this afternoon, so obviously it was very sudden.
And we stand in front of the gymnasium that bears his name.
Right, this is our Kobe Bryant Gymnasium. This is where our Lower Merion Aces play their basketball games, and where our kids have gym class every day.
What's the school schedule going forward? Obviously, this is going to generate quite a bit of attention.
We're still meeting as a district administration. We'll be consulting with the principal, our guidance counselors, and staff to try to decide what, if anything. I'm sure we'll be doing some things to support our students and our staff in the coming days, but we haven't made those decisions yet.
What was your personal interaction with Mr. Bryant ever?
I never met him, so I'm a Lower Merion alumna myself, but I predate Mr. Bryant's arrival here, and then I joined the district long after he had graduated.
Amy, already a memorial is at the door behind us. From your involvement in this community, being from here, on a personal level, and how important is this, Mr. Bryant, to this community?
Mr. Bryant is the person most identified with Lower Merion High School and Lower Merion School District throughout the world. I know my own children have been traveling in foreign countries wearing their Lower Merion High School t-shirts or jackets, and people all over the world have walked up to them and said, Lower Merion, Kobe Bryant. I mean, he is how we are identified around the world, so this is a difficult time for our community.
When's the last time he was here at the school?
I'd have to look that up. I don't know. Okay. If members of the news media want to come in the gym, we have some murals on the walls. We have a display case with some memorabilia of Mr. Bryant's. So fortunately, we can't.
That is Amy Bookman from the high school that Kobe Bryant went to, giving a tribute to him and their reaction, standing right in front of the gymnasium that bears his name in his honor, saying that he was the most famous student, of course, from that school, known all around the world. Sam Nita is still listening in. And Sam, just remind us how young Kobe Bryant was when he was spotted as a real talent.
Well, I mean, yeah, as you hear, he was drafted straight to the NBA out of high school, out of Lower Merion. It was before the league put in a rule that stipulates that now players have to do at least 1 year of college. So the world has grown up with him. You know, I think he was actually drafted when he was 17, and you know, we saw him in the league when he was 18 years old, and kind of went through the growing pains with him as a sort of quite a famous first playoff series against Utah, where you know, he airballed 3 shots down the stretch in the clutch, and that was obviously incredibly painful for him on a world stage. But then, you see him rebound from that, and over the rest of his career became, one of the clutchest players in NBA history that people could rely on every time they needed a bucket. Like he always rose to the occasion. He was one of those players that when the lights were on was when he was at his best. So yeah, I mean, the world has grown up with him. So I grew up with him. Like I think that so many of the current generation of players, both in the NBA and around the world, owe so much to him and his career. It's just, it's so tragic and so sad.
And that was where he began. How much did it pain him to have to retire eventually? What sort of plans did he have for his future?
Yeah, it's been sort of watching the transition from athlete to all the things that he's been doing since. He's written books. He's obviously won an Academy Award for his short film that was released, which is kind of his ode, sort of letter to basketball, talking about the impact it's had on his life and his sort of love for it. He's an investor. He's got various different investments. And yeah, I mean, to think of all the things that he was doing and he could have done after basketball, and for that to be cut short makes it all the more tragic. I think that he would have continued to be, a spokesperson for the NBA and for basketball and one of the faces of it. So again, it's, for him to lose his life so young, it's unbelievable, hard to put into words.
Sam, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this news, this tragic news of the death of Kobe Bryant, the basketball legend at, as you say, just the age of 41. And let's just show you the scene live from the hillside in Calabasas, around 20 miles or so from Los Angeles. In one of the shots that we've been looking at, you can see the smoke rising still from the helicopter crash, which took place just a few hours ago. It was reported by the Los Angeles County Sheriff Department that 5 people were confirmed dead. No survivors at all from that crash involving a Sikorsky helicopter. And then it was confirmed after initial reports on the TMZ website that Kobe Bryant, one of the all-time greatest basketball players, was on board that helicopter, his private helicopter, we believe. Let's go over to Singapore and talk to my colleague and Newsday anchor Rico Hezon, who's a massive basketball fan. He interviewed Kobe when he visited Asia. Rico, just tell us, your thoughts on hearing this terrible news.
Karen, it was so sad and very devastating when I learned about the news about Kobe Bryant, who has won 5 NBA championships. He was on 16 All-Star teams. He was the NBA Finals MVP twice. And this year, he could have been on the NBA Basketball Hall of Fame. Definitely, he is a unanimous vote to be among the greatest basketball players of all time. I interviewed Kobe Bryant about 10 years ago when he was on his Mamba tour. He's known as Kobe the Mamba Bryant. And he is a legend, not only on the court, but also off the court. He is such a kind and down-to-earth gentleman. When he entered the room, the first thing he said to me, "Hi, Rico, how are you?" He knew my name. And we did a buddy bump and even a fist bump. I said, wow, this guy is, one of the best basketball players of all time. And he didn't have any ego. He was such a simple man. We talked about his basketball career up until that time in 2010. He just won an NBA championship with Shaquille O'Neal. That was his second championship with the Shaq. And then I asked him, so what's next for Kobe Bryant? And he said, well, I still want to win more championships. I want to retire as a Los Angeles Laker. He retired way back in 2016 after a legendary and a very memorable 20-year career with the Los Angeles Lakers. And I will never forget that time that I spent with him. It was about 15 minutes. And even after the interview, Karen, I brought with me a jersey, and I was asking him to sign it. And then he had, some assistants around him, and the assistant said, no, you can't have your jersey signed by Kobe Bryant. And he said, forget about them. Rico, come here. Let me sign your jersey. And he said to Rico, love Kobe Bryant. So I will never really forget that 15 minutes that I had with the legendary Kobe Bryant around 10 years ago, Karen. It really makes me so sad that we've lost one of the greatest basketball players of all time.
And Rico, to you,
Karen.
as such an avid basketball fan, what was it about Kobe Bryant in particular that made him so special?
There are many things about Kobe Bryant that made him so special. I mean, he was very accommodating. He lived a great basketball career on and off the court. He was very down to earth. He was very genuine as a person, and I think that's what he will be remembered for throughout his basketball career. And of course, winning all of those most valuable player awards. And of course, just recently, there was a tribute to Kobe Bryant because LeBron James, who I also interviewed about 5 years ago, surpassed Kobe Bryant as the number 3 basketball scorer in the NBA of all time. So he will be always remembered for his kindness, for his generosity, and for being, a great shooter. Someone who came straight out of high school to make an impact in the world of basketball. And he'll also be remembered particularly here in Asia. He grew the game here in Asia. I mean, maybe about 2 years ago, nobody really was a big fan of the NBA, but he went out of his way to visit Asia, Singapore, the Philippines, China, which are big basketball meccas, and he promoted the sport. He was a great ambassador for the NBA, not only in the United States, but here in Asia, where it is now a huge sport and has a huge following.
I was
Karen.
going to ask you that, Rico, as Asia wakes up to this news, just coming up to 5:30 in the morning where you are, how much of an impact, given that basketball and Kobe Bryant have become so popular in recent years?
Very popular. He's a very popular basketball figure in China, in the Philippines, which these countries are where basketball is a religion. He's basically spread the popularity of the NBA across many countries here in the region. That's why the NBA is such an important part of everyone's basketball lives here in Asia, particularly for myself. I always try to watch 3 or 4 NBA games a week after work. And when I see Kobe Bryant at Staples Center watching any of the Los Angeles Lakers games, I would always tell my son, who's a basketball player himself, son, I interviewed that guy. I interviewed Kobe Bryant. I will never, ever forget that moment that I spoke to him 10 years ago. And I'm always so proud to tell so many people that I met Kobe Bryant, I interviewed him, and it will be, Karen, one of the most memorable interviews that I've had in my whole broadcasting career. Because, he was just so accommodating, so down to earth, and, whatever I asked him, whatever question I threw at him, he would always return it with a great answer and a smile. He would always smile ear to ear. I would always remember the smile that he had on his face. He's always a very positive, very energetic, and happy man. A true gentleman of the sport. Karen.
It's very emotional to hear this, Rico. And I mean, we've talked so much about his sport and what he brought to the game. There's another aspect to this which is very tragic as well. His family life. He has left 4 daughters, one of whom was born only last summer.
That's right. And there are also reports that one of his daughters was in that helicopter crash. And that daughter is a great basketball player herself. She's a teenager, and she has really excelled in basketball, and most probably one who will be following his footsteps in high school, in college, and maybe a WNBA career. It is really sad that we have lost a gentleman and a great man in this sport, and a great ambassador of basketball. Aaron.
Rico, thank you very much. Rico Hizon joining us very early in Singapore, 5:30 in the morning there, as Asia wakes up to this news. Rico Hizon, who interviewed Kobe Bryant just 10 years ago and it left an enormous impression on him, sharing his thoughts and his reaction to the tragic news that Kobe Bryant has been killed in a helicopter crash in California. Let's just explain what we know so far. Still very few details about why this helicopter crashed. You're looking at the scene of the crash with smoke rising. 5 people on board that helicopter, all of whom died in the crash, according to the local sheriff's department. So Kobe Bryant, just 41 years old, travelling in a private helicopter when it crashed and burst into flames, according to local reports. He's the 5-time NBA champion and widely considered one of the greatest players in the game's history. There have been so many tributes from celebrities, fellow sports stars, expressing shock at his sudden death. Even President Trump has tweeted saying terrible news. Now, the identities of the other victims haven't yet been released, but there are reports that one of Kobe Bryant's 4 daughters was on board that helicopter. That, at this stage, is unconfirmed. What we do know is that the city of Calabasas, just 20 miles or so, 30 kilometres from Los Angeles, has said in a statement it was with great sadness that we learn of the death of Kobe Bryant and 4 others in a helicopter crash. The aircraft went down in a remote field at around 10 o'clock this morning. Nobody on the ground was hurt. Eyewitnesses told the news site TMZ, which first broke the story, that they heard the helicopter's engine sputtering before it went down. The LA County Sheriff's Department has been sharing pictures of the scene of the accident, showing a fire truck and, as we are still watching, smoke emerging from the hills. The US Federal Aviation Administration has identified the crashed helicopter as a Sikorsky S-76. It says it is now investigating the accident alongside the National Transportation Safety Board, as is standard after any air accident in the United States. And officials are to give further details at a news conference that will be at the top of the hour, just in around 25 minutes time, at 22 GMT, 10 o'clock at UK time. But a huge figure, a huge day, and a devastating news for the world of sport. Kobe Bryant playing his entire 20-year career with the Los Angeles Lakers. He retired in April 2016, and his achievements just go on and on. He was 2008 NBA Most Valuable Player, 2-time NBA Finals MVP, 2-time NBA scoring champion, and a 2-time Olympic champion. So the magnitude of this news across the basketball world, but as we've been discussing, across the whole sporting world, right across the globe as well, because of the popularity of the NBA and basketball, particularly in Asia, as we were hearing from Rico Hizon, meaning this is an enormous news story, very tragic development, reaction coming in from all across the globe. What we are going to do now is just move away from this story for a short time to bring you up to date with other news. We will be returning to that Kobe Bryant's death in a helicopter crash as soon as we can with any more developments. But let's just update you on what is going on in China. The Chinese government has said it will extend the Lunar New Year holiday until the 2nd of February to help control the new coronavirus outbreak. The holiday had been due to end on the 30th of January. Earlier, officials warned that the disease was spreading faster than before. They've established that people can pass on the infection before they show any symptoms, making it much harder to contain. The Director General of the World Health Organization is on his way to Beijing to discuss the outbreak with Chinese officials. Our correspondent Rupert Wingfield-Hayes has this report from Hong Kong.
On the outskirts of Wuhan, the race is on to beat the coronavirus. Every bulldozer and excavator that can be found is being used to clear land for a 1,000-bed isolation hospital. It must be finished in 2 weeks. The trouble is, it's needed now. Chinese officials today admitted the virus is spreading faster and that it can be passed on by people who show no symptoms. There are now growing calls for the British government to evacuate its own citizens from the city, as the US is already doing.
And the UK government is aware now that all the transport links are closed. So I find it a little bit surprising that we're being told to leave if we can when there is no possible route.
Chinese state television is showing scenes like this of people treated in modern intensive care units. But videos like this one loaded to the internet claim to show a different picture of hospitals overwhelmed and staff unable to cope. In Beijing, reporters mobbed the head of China's CDC as he tried to calm the growing sense of panic. This virus is not as strong or as dangerous as the SARS virus was, he says. But it's a new virus, so we need time to develop treatment.
While the Chinese government is now taking decisive measures to try and contain the spread of this virus, many experts think it is already too late. One study suggests that in Wuhan city alone, by the end of next week, there will be nearly 200,000 infections. And that's why senior doctors here in Hong Kong are calling on the government to close the border with mainland China.
Back in mainland China, many places are not waiting. These pictures posted on the internet appear to show villages and towns putting up their own improvised borders, shutting themselves off, making sure travellers from Wuhan cannot come in. Wuhan itself is now a ghost town. Today, this was the centre of a city of 11 million people during the biggest holiday of the year. Rupert Wingfield-Hayes, BBC News, in Hong Kong.
Well, Dr. Larry Bryant is chair of Ending Pandemics. He was part of the World Health Organization's team that eradicated smallpox. He gave me his assessment of how concerned we should be about the coronavirus.
It's concerning. There's no question about that. This is a coronavirus. It's similar to 2 outbreaks we've had in the past 20 years. One SARS in 2002, 2003. That sickened 8,000 and killed 800. Another MERS that we had more recently, but also killed about the same number of people. It seems to be growing more rapidly than I would like and exported already to 10 countries.
So when you look at China's dramatic reaction and response, you don't see this as any kind of overreaction to what they're dealing with?
No, in fact, I think we should all be proud and grateful that China is not doing, as it did in the past, hiding cases. It's actually responding very vigorously and I think appropriately.
And do you think that is because lessons were learnt, say, from the SARS outbreak back in 2003 about what not to do?
I think we've all learned lessons from the SARS outbreak, and China is certainly showing that they've learned a lot of lessons. 95% of the 2,000 cases are in China. All of the 40-some-odd deaths are in China or in Chinese. And so it's appropriate that they take these actions the way they do.
Looking at the virus itself, how dangerous do you believe it is? I mean, do we know its capacity at this stage?
Well, it comes from a bad family, as it were. Coronaviruses are viruses frequently found in bats. The SARS virus, the MERS virus, if you look at a genetic family tree, this virus, this coronavirus, sits right between them and very close to SARS. It is a zoonotic disease. It began in an animal, probably a bat. Probably the bat bit and spread the disease to a food animal or a wild animal that was eaten in a wet market. And humans, by butchering that animal, probably contracted it, and then it became airborne. That's the big problem. It is now airborne, and it has been demonstrating person-to-person spread. Although the majority of these cases are probably not person-to-person spread, there are enough now to worry us.
That's Dr. Larry Bryant, who was part of the team that eradicated smallpox, giving his thoughts about how dangerous the coronavirus could be. Now, the populist Shia Muslim cleric Muqtada al-Sadr has called off anti-US demonstrations in Iraq, saying he wanted to avoid internal strife. He'd earlier told supporters to take to the streets of Baghdad and other cities. The U-turn comes after 22 anti-government protesters were injured in clashes with security forces in Baghdad. Hundreds of people have been demonstrating in the city centre, demanding widespread reforms. Here's our Arab Affairs editor, Sebastian Usher.
Security forces in Baghdad have once again tried to clear some of the main anti-government protest sites. More demonstrators were injured as they faced tear gas and live ammunition. Some threw stones and petrol bombs. But their mood was defiant a day after they withstood a major effort by the security forces to bring their protest to an end. From early in the morning, thousands of students rallied to Tahrir Square, the epicenter of the demonstrations, and a site that has so far not come under attack from the security forces. Elsewhere in Iraq, clashes continued as protesters returned to the streets after being forced back on Saturday. In Nasiriyah, dozens were injured as a huge procession of protesters moved through the city. Other major southern cities saw similar scenes. In Kerbala and Basra. The protesters were keen to show they remained defiant despite what seemed a big blow to their cause when the powerful cleric Muqtada al-Sadr instructed his supporters to leave the demonstrations. Instead, he wanted them to direct their anger once again at the US. But a call for more such demonstrations was swiftly withdrawn on the grounds that he didn't want to cause internal strife. That averted what might have been a showdown, but the rift between the political class and the many Iraqis still willing to risk their lives to make their voices heard is only deepening. Sebastian Usher, BBC News.
Well, let's go back to that breaking news story that the former US basketball star Kobe Bryant has died in a helicopter crash in Southern California at the age of 41. We can see that the live picture still coming in from California. The town of Calabasas, 20 miles or so outside Los Angeles. The hillside above that, the scene of the crash where his helicopter went down. 5 people on board that helicopter near the city of Calabasas. But what we're also learning in just the last few minutes, NBC News is reporting in the United States that Kobe Bryant's 13-year-old daughter was also on the helicopter that crashed and has died in that crash. NBC also go on to report that a teammate of Kobe Bryant's daughter, a parent of the teammate and the pilot were also killed in that crash. Kobe Bryant, who has 4 daughters, one of whom a rising star herself in the world of basketball. We learn that Kobe Bryant's 13-year-old daughter was also on that helicopter that crashed and was killed. But the shockwaves from this news story going out across the world of basketball and sport and beyond because of the popularity of Kobe Bryant and how famous he was, really one of the all-time greats of basketball. More famous sports figures from the US have been paying tribute in the last hour or so. New England Patriots star Tom Brady has tweeted, "We will miss you. We miss you already, Kobe." The former American football and baseball star Deion Sanders said, "Somebody tell me it ain't so." And basketball star Jeremy Lin tweeted saying, "Life is too precious." Sorry, these are out of sync, but I'll just give you a sense of what the number of tributes coming in. 6-time NBA champion and Olympic gold medalist Scottie Pippen also tweeting, saying, "I'm stunned. Words can't even come close to describing it. Just an incredibly sad and tragic day." So just to recap, Kobe Bryant, the basketball star, the former player, has died in a helicopter crash in Southern California. So many tributes coming in. We've been speaking to many people from the world of basketball. I've been talking to Adi Adipaton, who's the BBC's travel show presenter, also a former basketball player.
Kobe Bryant is, as you said, he's a legend. He's surpassed the sport of basketball. He's the man who took over the mantle of Michael Jordan. You know, when Michael Jordan retired, everyone worried about basketball being in decline and losing its stardust. And then along came, you know, the bright-faced, superstar, athletic, charismatic, intelligent player that Kobe Bryant was, who went to the LA Lakers and won 5 NBA championships and played in this exciting, exuberant fashion that made him just someone that everyone all over the world, you know, just wanted to aspire to. Yeah, all right, now I'm looking at my WhatsApp groups, and I've got people who are literally in tears, not just basketball fans, but people who just knew about Kobe Bryant and his legacy. This is devastating news.
And Adi, you said he went to the LA Lakers. He played his entire 20-year career there. He joined them and he stayed there.
Yes. I mean, I think that's kind of when you're a basketball star and you're a legend, you know, that's what happens. You stay and you want to create your legacy. And Kobe Bryant would have looked at the legend or the weight of the LA Lakers. They're a team that has such history, you know, with players like Abdul Karim Jabbar and Magic Johnson, people who, you know, really turned the world onto basketball. And he wanted to be one of those players. And he was there. He was one of those players. He's had his shirt retired. You know, the people in LA right now will be in mourning, as will most of the people all over the world, because what he done to that team, he put them back on the map. You know, after years of, you know, being in the doldrums when the Chicago Bulls became the team because of Michael Jordan, then Kobe came to LA and suddenly LA was Showtime once again, and all because of Kobe Bryant.
What was so special about Kobe Bryant as a player?
He had everything. He had everything. He was athletic. You know, he could score from outside. He could shoot threes. He could take you to the basket and dunk the basketball. But what it was his competitiveness, his extreme competitiveness. When his team should never have won, he would pick that team up on his shirt tails, and he would take them to victories that they shouldn't have had. You know, and he was one of those players that, you know, other teams feared. The moment you knew you were playing against Kobe Bryant, other teams would know, you know, listen, this is going to be, we're more than likely going to be in a tough game if we even have a chance to win it. You know, and it was just, I don't know, he was just the ultimate competitor. I'm watching pictures on the TV right now, and I'm so distracted because I can see how lively and how vibrant, watching him scoring and just thinking, how can this guy be dead? It's just shattered by this.
That's the BBC Travel Show presenter and basketball player Adi Adipaton talking to me a little earlier, paying tribute to Kobe Bryant. And as we learn a little bit more about what happened in that crash, we're also learning the tragic development that Kobe Bryant's 13-year-old daughter was also on that helicopter that crashed in Calabasas in Southern California and has died. We also learn that NBC News in the US is reporting that a teammate of Kobe Bryant's daughter, a parent of the teammate, and the pilot were killed in that crash. That is coming from NBC News in the United States. But so many tributes, so many thoughts and reactions to Kobe Bryant's death, and the news emerging just in the last couple of hours, that crash happening at 10 o'clock local time in Los Angeles around then. I've been speaking to Roland Lazenby, who is the author of the book Showboat, The Life of Kobe Bryant, and he gave me his thoughts about what happened.
Kobe Bryant was a very creative spirit, a very determined, very willful young man. I was there the night he scored his first NBA bucket. He bounced into the locker room afterward and hit me with a soul shake. He had no idea who I was, just some reporter in the room, but I got to know him quite well. And his determination, I'm sorry if I keep looking up, but his determination, his will, there were so many things that shaped him. He came into the National Basketball Association in America in this whirl of controversy as if he were a young man jumping the line. He was a teenager. Adidas had paid him millions to turn professional. And there was all of this bad publicity that was incorrect. Assuming that he was trying to do all of this or that he and his family were somehow engineering it. And I went in detail. You know, I've written a couple of books about him, but I went in detail on this biography recently, Showboat. And none of it was true, and he never bothered to try to correct the negative publicity around himself, and he could have done it easily. I mean, it was not something that couldn't be made clear. The people involved in all of, from Adidas, the people who moved everything in his life, it was not Kobe or even his family instigating it. But Kobe wasn't concerned at that age about public image. He just wanted to compete, and he had such a pure competitive spirit. He struggled because he also had this very fine creative mind. And sometimes those things work together well, and sometimes they don't. But he was unlike anyone else. I once said, if our culture could somehow have bottled all of the things that Kobe possessed in his character, we would probably be selling condos on the moon these days. He had that sort of ability to just transform everything.
Roland, just in the last 30 seconds of our program, just what was so special about him? Why did he become one of the greatest of all time?
Because he was absolutely and completely driven, and there was nothing he would not do to be great. He made every single sacrifice. It included some very difficult decisions in his life, but there was nothing he did not do every single day. It was just phenomenal the way he attacked, the ferocity with which he attacked basketball.
That's Roland Lazenby, who is a biographer of Kobe Bryant, giving his reaction to the news, which broke just in the last couple of hours. One line that is just coming in the last few minutes is some tragic developments in the finding out the identity of the people on board, one of whom is Kobe Bryant's 13-year-old daughter, Jana. She was also on the helicopter that crashed near Los Angeles, killing him and all 4 others on board. That's being reported by several major US media outlets. A teammate from Bryant's daughter's basketball team, a parent of the teammate, and the pilot were also killed. That is in reports from NBC News in the United States. Kobe Bryant's 13-year-old daughter, Jana, was seen as promising in her own right as a basketball player. Very tragic news indeed about Kobe Bryant also being on board that helicopter with his 13-year-old daughter, Jana. Let's just talk over what we're seeing here. This is the crash site where the helicopter went down in the hills of the city of Calabasas, around 20 miles, 30 kilometers from Los Angeles. 5 people traveling on board that helicopter. Kobe Bryant, 41 years old, travelling in a private helicopter is what he did. He often commuted by private helicopter. But this crashed, the Sikorsky S-76 crashed and burst into flames. The 5-time NBA champion is widely considered as one of the greatest players in the history of basketball, and that has really been reflected in the tributes that have been coming in. We've just seen figures from all across the world, in all fields, not just the world of sport, politics too. President Trump tweeting about the shock that everybody is feeling at his sudden death. But what we know about what has happened in front of us, the wreckage from that crash, you can see it's still smoking. Emergency services arriving very soon on the scene after the crash, but they were unable to do much at all. 5 people perishing, but the city of Calabasas said it was with great sadness that we learn of the death of Kobe Bryant and 4 others. A news conference is expected from the county sheriff in the next few minutes. You're watching BBC News.